I wonder if everyone can take their seats because we're going to start in about 30 seconds. Thank you. Do we have Alderwoman Stearns? Calling Alderwoman Stearns. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, I don't see her, so at least in the short term, I wonder if everyone can stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. Oh, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Milamwe.
Here.
Alderman Stearns.
Here.
Alderman McDay.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Fazzini.
Here.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Alderman Lauer.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. And we're going to start with public comments, and we have 4 people who have asked to address the council, and we have a time limit of approximately 3 minutes apiece. We're going to start with Mr. Herm Harding. Would you come forward? And again, could you, for the record, give us your street address as well?
I'm Herm Harding. I live at 601 Lutz Road in Bloomington.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank the council for making themselves so accessible, available to the public in this kind of a meeting. I am the current president of a association of 100 independent residents that live on Lutz Road, and they accept the risk of driving on Lutz Road to get to their particular homes. Your people up here have been inundated, I think, in the last month with emails and telephone calls, things of this type, from residents at Luther Oaks, telling you about their concerns about the safety of Lutz Road. And let me summarize some key points that I think we have even mentioned to some of you. The road is unsafe for two-way traffic. When you meet someone, both must slow down to 20 miles an hour and both must drop their right wheels off the pavement. Many people will stop and let the other person assume responsibility. This condition has existed for 7 years that Luther Oaks has been there. Luther Oaks has nearly 200 residents, more than exist in many new developments that do have a safe road right from the beginning. About half of these people have cars and travel Lutz Road frequently. On a daily basis, we have about 70 employees on site, with many leaving and returning several times a day because of split shifts. During a recent storm, we had 2 cars that slid off the road into the ditch, fortunately at a time where a place where the ground was level and they did not roll over. There are rollover opportunities very clearly if the cars met at particular points. A new skilled care division is being built, going to be built this year. It'll have additional 30 new jobs, 20 new residents, and again, more traffic on an already unsafe road. If we had to defend and lose a possible lawsuit resulting from a crash on this road, the expense would be far greater, I imagine, to the city than keeping this road in fixing the road. This This council has responded lately, authorizing the development of design drawings, and we're now waiting for those. And when they set in place, we hope that this council will set in place a plan whereby this road can be planned at least during the upcoming fiscal year. I know you have a lot of proposals that come through, but we've been saying this for nearly 7 years. Each time it looks like we're making some progress, a new council is elected, or other more important priorities have set us back. So we're looking for the council to take the lead and help us develop a safe road, a safe Lutz road. We think it's our turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Schultz?
I'm Bill Scholes. I live at 2103 Woodfield Road, Bloomington, 61704. I'm here tonight to let you know that the changes that some of you have worked very hard on, as far as the board and commission going from a 4-year term to a three-year maximum, is not in the best interest of the city government. It looks good on paper. I've looked it over, and on the surface, you are giving more opportunity to people to serve the city. That's what I have done. But with the proposed changes, which looks good, there's a lot of questions that come about. As now proposed, in 2 years, you can change 67% of all the commissions or board makeup. You are putting a lot of power in one person's hand. With special interest groups and so forth, it is so easy to change this board not to have the city as in the works of the city in the best interest. So therefore, I ask you tonight to vote no on this proposal, and to have also a chair of a committee only serve 1 year does not make sense. The cream rises to the top. The committee usually votes who will be their chair. And now it will be that you can only serve 1 year. And why would you want to put somebody on as chair who does not really understand all of the intricate workings of a commission? It takes about a year in most of these commissions to really understand all of the practicality and the events that take place to vote critical issues and give recommendations to you, the city council. We only recommend from a commission standpoint. We do not vote. We vote to recommend to you. And for that reason, I ask you to vote no on this new proposal.
Thank you. Alton Franklin? Alton, you know the routine.
Yes. My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington. I'm a little bit flustered there. There's a number of things on my mind. One of the things that I really have admired tonight is hearing some clear and specific conversations. There's been a lot of times where it's been, well, we'll think about planning a meeting where we'll discuss having the next meeting to talk about when we're going to have the next meeting. And it gets a little bit concerning from the standpoint that there have been things that all of a sudden seem to take on a sudden speed necessity, and we get things that we really didn't bargain for. Law of unintended consequences, because all of a sudden we're slamming the pedal to the metal to do something that really doesn't need to be done. Alderman Sage in particular has made an issue over the years that I've been coming here with regards to prioritization. We're still talking about it. We're talking about a situation that has arisen here now with regards to the road that the gentleman spoke about earlier. We're talking about a life safety issue. For the name, I just don't, for the life of me, understand how we can spend $1 million on a park and we can't do what's right. If you get an ambulance coming and going on that road, I've been out there, you're going to have 2 rollovers. Now you got a real big mess. and the lawsuit's going to be the last of the issues that I've got with it. There's a lot of good knowledge and wisdom that comes from the community that is out there. It's not something that comes without time. It's not something that comes without work, a lot of it. I would like to think that at some point when I do finally step off to greener pastures, that I'm not going to have to continue to gnaw away at the beast government to do what's right. Uh, with regards to the zoo, you'll find no bigger fan. I grew up, I spent half my life probably in a zoo, and not because I was one of the exhibits, but because I genuinely enjoyed it. My only issue is that I heard nothing specific. And with regards to the numbers that have been presented, I know that it in essence doubles the subsidy that we've been putting out there. Now granted, one of the marvels and one of the reasons why I've applauded along with the rest of the folks when those checks have come in is that they've been one of the few entities with regards to this municipality that has actually brought a return back. Now granted, it was less negative, but it still was something that didn't have to be done. That money could have been spent in another way. It is a real treasure. And for those who haven't been out there, Miller Park Zoo is an awesome zoo for a community this size. But we need to live within realities, and we need to work with priorities. I would urge you moving forward to please take those priorities for more than discussion, take them for action. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bruce Meeks.
Bruce Meeks, 1402 Wright Street, Bloomington, Illinois, 61701. Good evening. Tonight I will not address any of the elected officials or mention them by name, so I can comply with the city code on public comment, which I deem appropriate to have civility. This city needs to have all public meetings, committees, commissions, and boards be consistent with the city code, which is currently being violated and has been for years, and with the Open Meetings Act. I've sent you those differences by email earlier in the week. This may change the ongoing public perceptions from positive to negative. Oh, no, wait a minute. Negative to positive would be the hope. This is of vital importance to the council's operations, as stated as a report from the city manager in 2012 at your retreat. It's important that we meet or exceed the laws of the land. This needs immediate, decisive, and swift action, with no more chilling of the public's comment and input. First, we comply with the laws of Illinois and the city code, some of the very code a majority of you voted into law. Yet you did not comply with during the subcommittee's experiment that exceeded the planned 6 months, went 9 months, which I hold a majority of you to blame for their failure to comply, because that would have been an excellent avenue for citizen input. Secondly, an absolute end of informal meetings that have in the past violated the OMA, again stated in your retreat in 2012 in downtown Bloomington, which was originally a goal of the creating the subcommittees, was to reduce the exposure to OMA. Third, all public meetings, boards, commissions, councils, committees, ad hoc committees that meet in this room be live streamed via the internet and accessible by the citizens starting this month. New year, let's get going. The technology is in place. There's a static camera, there's a camera. It's all here. We've been using it for how long? About a year, about 12, 14 months. So tonight I hope to hear clear statements spoken in your aldermanic comments at the end of the meeting and directing that this request be implemented to all public meetings and that be given to staff or your absolute opposition. On the Miller Park Zoo, I won't bore you with my many years of involvement in the 1970s. I was on the board. I used to walk a tiger through the zoo outside the cage, in the zoo, not outside. It's my conclusion to tell you that in the work session you talked about the mayor, about the city manager working on policy. Please add to that policy a plan to move the Miller Park Zoological Society in charge of the zoo, operating the zoo, and being a Miller Park Zoological Garden Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move forward to the oath of office. If I could have Police Chief Hefner come forward. Welcome. We've got a great honor this evening, and you want to introduce two of your colleagues.
Yes, I have Assistant Chief Wheeler and Assistant Chief Bays. Good evening, Council, fine citizens of Bloomington, other distinguished guests, and of course, the members of the Bloomington Police Department. Tonight, I present two officers for you to be sworn in to take their oath. First, we have Scott Wold. His family is here, his wife, Brittany, parents, Valerie and Kevin, in-laws, Dirk and Cindy, and grandfather, Lyle. Scott comes to us originally from the Antioch and Grays Lake area, where he attended the College of Lake County studying criminal justice. He later relocated to Phoenix, Arizona to pursue a career in law enforcement with the Arizona Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol Division. He graduated first in his class at the Arizona Law Enforcement Academy and is also a graduate of the FBI SWAT School. He subsequently returned to northeastern Illinois, joining the Round Lake Beach Police Department, where he was a member of the tactical team, gang and narcotics unit, and served as a defensive tactics instructor for the department. Scott joined us in July of 2011. He enjoys spending time with his wife and family, weightlifting, and range training. The second officer is Officer Jim Klesson. His parents are here, Barry and Kathy, his fiancée Renee, his aunt and uncle, Alana, and Junior. Jim Klesson is from the Bloomington Normal area, graduating in 2007 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Illinois State University, and then going on to complete his master's degree at ISU in 2011. Before being hired by Bloomington Police in 2011, he worked approximately for 4 years for the City of LaSalle Police Department. Since he's been here, he's received 3 letters of commendation regarding efforts above and beyond during a burglary in progress, a domestic situation involving an infant, and another in regards to a drug violation. He gives his time also in assisting with our Youth Explorer program as part of the Bloomington Police Department, and he's the recording secretary for the Bloomington PD PBPA Unit 21.
At this point, Madam Clerk, would you please step forward? And actually, if we have friends, relatives, everybody, come on up and take whatever pictures you'd like. It says, y'all come. So, yeah. Please have family, friends, anyone, come on up, please. Go anywhere you want.
Where they're going to be with you? Yeah, they're going to be there. Any family?
Any family members, please come forward. You shouldn't be sitting, you should be up here. This is a wonderful day. Please come forward. This is your city hall, please. Everybody come on up. Maybe not random strangers, but every friend. Again, thank you all very much, and again, we appreciate all of the work that our first responders do for us every day and protect us in our entire community. We have the lowest crime rate in the entire state of Illinois of any metropolitan area, and it's certainly we owe them a lot, and as a result. As we move right along in our agenda, we have reappointment of Mike Ireland to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mike, are you here to stand up to be recognized? I do want to make a clarification on this. Mike Ireland's term had actually expired some time ago. He and I spoke in May, actually just after I was sworn in as mayor, about his willingness to continue to serve. And for some reason, I don't know if paperwork somewhere wasn't filled out, it didn't get put on our agenda. I thought it would have been put on perhaps over the summer. Mike called me about a month ago or so and brought that to my attention. So I just want to make that clear that this will be for the remainder of, in a sense, a term that had expired quite some time ago. Let's move forward with the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any members of the City Council would like to have removed for separate vote and separate discussion?
Yes, I have one here. Let me get it. I'm sorry, Mayor, I've resolved that
Okay.
issue. I think that
Alrighty, thank you. Therefore, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Milowamboy,
Second.
second by Alderman Fazzini. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to read my statement. That I
Yes,
normally
please,
do.
go ahead. Alderman Fazzini, Fruin.
I want to make sure that I read this, that for both the consent and the regular agenda, I do not have any personal or business interest in any of the listed items, nor have I received any financial benefits from any of the parties or organizations referenced in these specific agenda items.
Okay, thank you. If everyone will please vote, I think this might be one of the first times that I have gone through this electronic voting and not messed it up, if this works properly. We'll see. Okay. Such confidence. Okay, Karen, I got to come to you. How do I present it on the board? Oh, okay. All right. How many months now? Okay. Okay. That was a 9-0, sorry. It was a unanimous vote. I actually pressed it twice, and that's why there it is. Thank you. All right, we'll move right along to the regular agenda. Item 8A, presentation on dam safety at Lake Evergreen and Lake Bloomington and the need to replace the bridge deck on the Evergreen Lake Spillway Bridge. And we've dedicated about 5 minutes to this. This is for information. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager.
Mayor and Council, I've asked Craig Cummings, our Water Department Director, to take just a few minutes to give you some overview of work that's going to be conducted by Hanson Professional Services Incorporated. And there's several particular projects. Plus, we're also trying to give you an overview of what could be some of the construction costs involved in some of the design work that this firm is going to do. So won't take very long time, but wanted Mr. Cummings to kind of give a brief overview. So, Craig.
Thank you, City Manager Hales, Mayor, council members. I'm going to talk to you tonight. I don't know if I'll be able to finish up in 5 minutes, so I'll do my very best here, but there's a lot to cover here. I'm going to talk about the emergency action plan preparation for the 3 dams that the City of Bloomington Water Department does in fact maintain and we are responsible for. Not only are we looking with this particular project to look at that emergency action plan preparation, but I would really term it as more of a master plan for those facilities as well. As I get into this presentation, you'll see as I talk about perhaps some capital projects, some operation and maintenance needs. There are other things that are going to be covered in the scope of this work as well. Now, dams are categorized to the degree of threat to life and property in case of failure. And really, when you talk about an emergency action plan, that's exactly what we're talking about, is the scenario, the unfortunate scenario, if it should occur, of a dam failure. We have the trifecta here in the water department in that we have dams of all three classes that are recognized in the state of Illinois. Evergreen Lake Reservoir is a Class 1 high hazard dam, and they are so judged or categorized based upon the degree of threat. Now, if you look at the Evergreen Lake Reservoir and have ever seen that dam, it's a very large dam for central Illinois, which is relatively flat, but there is enough topography change there that that dam is about 70 feet tall. Not only is the height of the spillway critical component, but also the amount of water that is in fact impounded in the reservoir itself. So Evergreen Lake is a Class 1 high hazard dam. Lake Bloomington Dam, if you drive by and look at that and were to stand at the base of that dam, it's quite different from the Evergreen Lake Reservoir. It's only about 15 feet tall. The amount of impoundment is much less, so it's a Class 2 medium hazard dam. And you may have driven by this and not even recognized it, but there is a dam at Comlara Park near the camping area. There's a small pond. The whole idea of that is to maintain a particular water level in that pond. If in fact the water level in Evergreen Lake would rise and fall when we're pumping out of it, that small dam would keep a constant level. It's more aesthetic. But it is a regulated dam, and we do have to maintain that as well. So we have all three of those particular categories of dams. Now, an EAP is required for compliance with state dam safety regulations. It is something that we currently have. We are in complete compliance with dam safety regulations at this time, but our EAP is over 20 years old. And anybody who's done emergency action plans realizes that you have to take them out, you have to maintain them. They're living documents. You have to keep them up, and particularly when you're talking about life and safety issues, it's very important that you revise them from time to time, and that is exactly what we're doing here. Now, an emergency action plan covers a lot of different things. They're all covered here, but probably the biggest thing is the breach analysis. That is, in fact, the failure of the dam. That has to be modeled, and there's a couple scenarios that are undertaken during that analysis. One is known as a sunny day breach. Basically, what that means is it's a perfectly nice day, sunny day. There's nothing wrong with the dam. It just happens to catastrophically fail. What happens to that wall of water as it goes downstream? How far downstream does it go, affecting property and life as it goes downstream? The other scenario is the worst case scenario. It's called the probable maximum flood scenario. Basically, it's the worst flood that'll never happen, because if a probable maximum flood happens, it's no longer probable, it's reality. So it's very unlikely that that would happen. It's just a highly unlikely scenario. In the state of Illinois, it's based upon probable maximum, actually across the country, probable maximum precipitation, another term used to drive the probable maximum flood. In the state of Illinois, that's figured at 17 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. We've never experienced that, but we could. And it's a longer duration. You could have more rain. So it's basically looking at kind of the what if that dam failed when the conditions were the worst that they could be. So those are the two scenarios that are very, very important when modeling that flow, that wave that goes downstream, and what kind of damage it would cause. We also have, as I mentioned, some other things that we want to address in this particular program, this particular contract, and that is some floodplain restoration grading directly downstream from the Lake Bloomington spillway. We do have some area where we've been using for fill for years, and we're perhaps impeding or getting into the floodplain there. We want to make sure that that is the case or not the case, and take remedial action if in fact we have gone ahead and gotten into the floodplain. We also want to look at the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency Flood Insurance Rate Map, known as a FIRM map, and that's for houses around Lake Bloomington. It really drives the flood insurance rates in those particular areas. We currently have a firm map, and it's based upon a particular elevation for the 100-year flood, but it could be changed quite a bit with this new computer modeling, which is so much better. So that's another part that we're looking at, and of course we're looking at structural repairs and operation and maintenance needs. And those are generally, when you talk about capital needs, those are much longer term. In the terms of a master plan, they would give us a very good idea of what projects we have coming up and how we're going to fund them over a much longer period of time, 5, 10, 20 years. So that's the structural repairs that we're talking about as well. The only thing that we have as far as a structural repair that's really pressing right now is the deck of the bridge at the Evergreen Lake Dam, and I'll talk about that a little bit further. The other things are more cosmetic or not as critical, but that is one that we do have to address fairly soon. As I mentioned, the firm map, these are points all around the lake. We have property all around the lake, obviously, because we lease that property to property owners up at the lake, but keep in mind that our huge investment in our water plant is right on the lakeshore as well. So it's critical that we know what this firm map says, and a revision would be very good for us as well. So this is something that we're using current technology to do some computer modeling and give us a much more precise map. For instance, this house you probably have seen it up at Lake Bloomington, $1.5 million house. You can see it's right on the water's edge. It looks wonderful. But imagine if 5 feet of water rose there, what would happen to that particular house? Those are the kind of things that we're addressing. We're not required to prevent that from happening. In fact, we just have to make sure that we know where the 100-year flood line is. But for this property owner to get flood insurance that's very, very accurate and pay only what they need to do, we have to have a very precise map. And the map we have could be improved upon. I spoke about the dam breach waves. This is kind of a graphic depiction of that. If you want to look from right to left, you have this particular scenario where this is an actual scenario where the Lake Springfield Dam was modeled to fail, and what happens with that wave that goes downstream. We will have a very similar result with our particular project, where we will look at the dam wave, the breach wave from both Lake Bloomington or Evergreen heading downstream, and how far downstream it does go. We will do the inundation mapping through GIS. McLean County has a very robust GIS system, but that's not to say that other counties have the same system. And I say other counties because this is a unique project in that, generally speaking, when you talk about EAPs, you're talking about, boy, if a tornado went through the city of Bloomington, what would we do? If we had a rail car carrying toxic materials that derailed here, what would we do? You're affecting the citizens your voters that you represent. This is completely different. A dam failure is not going to come towards the town of Normal or the city of Bloomington. It's going to go in the Mackinac River and go into a different county. We have to worry about liaison with county officials in different counties, road commissioners, and folks that are extraterritorial to the county of McLean. So it's a very unique project along those lines, and we have to use their GIS system as well as McLean County. So it will take some time to put all of this together. We do have a breach analysis that was done some 20 years ago. I will only say that the breach analysis that was done there was probably more calculator and pen and paper than computer modeling. The computer modeling has come light years in the last couple of decades. It's incredible. We use a couple of programs that are developed by the Corps of Engineers, and they do an excellent job of modeling this. It does take time. That's why there's a lot of hours in this particular project to go ahead and model this, but you have a very fine product when it's done. And the nice thing about the modeling is it's very precise and it can be built upon in the future. So it's not as though we don't have a breach analysis. It's just that that data is probably a bit stale and it's not as robust as it could be. Emergency Action Plan, what is it? It's a written document to facilitate and organize actions during an emergency. Anybody probably could have come up with that particular definition, but it really becomes your Bible once you have one of these imminent issues, and that's how we would use ours. It's used in emergency planning and decision-making, resource allocation, and, if necessary, evacuations. And if we did have a dam breach, there definitely would be evacuations. There's a notification flow chart. Of course we have one of these today. This is one for a different EAP. The difference is when you have a very dated notification flow chart, first off, are all the names correct? Are departments the way they used to be? Things of that nature. But what we were lacking 20 years ago is the fact that we're not even taking into account things like reverse 911 or notifying people through social media, which wasn't even considered when we did the previous EAP. So there's a lot of avenues to get that word out a lot better to folks and warn them than what we have currently in our EAP. As I mentioned, the kind of the master plan aspect of it, it would address also maintenance and repairs for those very, very important facilities or assets in at both Lake Bloomington, which is actually a picture here of the spillway, as well as Evergreen Lake. There's not much that needs to be done at Comlara Park, but if there is something noted through this study, we will address that as well. We have some things that we'd have to do with the spillway. This looks a little unsightly, but quite frankly, the spillway is in very good shape. When we get to Evergreen Lake, this is not that old of a dam. When you see concrete issues like this, they're perfectly normal. Concrete is like anything else. It needs to be maintained over time. You're going to have some spalling, some cracks. What you want to make sure is you don't have major cracks, major spalling. That's why we would come up with capital plans to address those issues, to make sure that these assets are maintained through the years and last as long as they can. Some simple things like a fence post, having some freeze-thaw action and popping the concrete. Nothing really terrible, but it is something that we do need to address. We do have some paved ditches at at Evergreen Lake, about halfway down the spillway. It's nothing more than a ditch that allows water to flow about halfway down. It's caught in a ditch and then directed off the spillway embankment. And there are some areas that needs to be addressed. You can see some areas here where it has settled. So we do have to address that. Not a critical need, but it is something that does need to be addressed. Now, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the Evergreen Lake Spillway Bridge, and it is in dire need of repair. It does have box beam construction. These are prefabricated concrete box beams. This one is badly deteriorated. In fact, if you've been up there lately, you can see where we have a particular lane that is minimized so that people don't drive on it, which is right over this particular weak area. There is a load limit on it right now, and that will probably get more severe as time goes on. It is anticipated that this alone would probably cost $750,000 to repair this bridge deck. There are very few alternatives to it as well. If you've driven around the lake up there, you realize that it's very sparse with respect to roads, and this is one of the main roads to get around. So we will have to address this eventually. Certainly the state, it is now in the bridge inventory. Until 2 years ago, this bridge didn't exist on the state's radar. We spoke with the county and basically said, is this yours? And they said, no, it's not ours. So it is, in fact, the city of Bloomington's, and it is something that we do have to address. I point this out because it gives a good depiction of the two lakes and the fact that we're going to be looking at about 10 linear miles of stream on the Mackinac River from where Lake Bloomington's Money Creek dumps into the Mackinac River all the way down past Evergreen Lake. You are passing with a flood wave, an interstate bridge, as well as some county bridges as well. Now, the data that we used in the past, we used a lot of USGS maps that had 5-foot intervals, and now we have much better data. We can use LiDAR data, which is shooting lasers from an airplane. It sounds as high-tech as it does. to give us very precise contours on the ground. So things that we thought may have flooded in the past, when we run our models, they may not be shown to be flooding this time, and vice versa. So it's a very tedious but very important aspect of this work is that we have to do a lot of cross sections here. Used to be you'd go out with a survey crew, and it was very, very time consuming out in the field. Now we can use it a lot with data that we've collected through LiDAR, which the city does own, and we can use that to come up with much better flood maps. We do have public meetings scheduled for this. Public awareness, public input is critical. We certainly want the people that might be affected by this to be part of the overall project. I don't know what they did in the past. I can't tell you how much input they had from the public, but that certainly is an angle that we fully expect to exploit with this particular project. We want the public input. We certainly want the elected officials' input as well, both here in the city, but other areas as well. For instance, let's say Woodford, Tazewell County, or anyone else that may be infected by a flood wave. The other thing that we have is we could, in fact, when we do these bridge deck repairs, have a road closure, either partially or fully. That's going to be very important because that particular bridge, it's not heavily traveled, but again, the alternatives are very, very few. So we want to get the public's involvement in that as well. So ultimately, that's kind of the quick analysis of this particular issue. Again, think of it more of a master plan than just the emergency action plan update.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Cummings. And quickly, we're way over time, so I just want to see if there are questions. Alderman Fruin.
Just one, from the finance standpoint, from the cost standpoint, is this a city of Bloomington goes it alone, or is there anybody else sharing some of these financial responsibilities with us with regard to other governmental agencies, or are we on our own here?
We are on our own. That's what we've done in the past. The only hope that we could have is perhaps the bridge deck if the state were, they do have certain bridge programs, and I certainly would refer to the engineering division to help us out with that. But a lot of times those are bridges that they've already earmarked. This one's kind of a Johnny-come-lately bridge, and my guess is in early conversations with the county, they basically said, we have no money to help you out with, and I don't know that the state would have either. So I guess ultimately we are looking at doing most of these projects ourselves. We would certainly exhaust any source of funding beyond the city's funds.
Any other questions? Alderwoman Stearns.
So this is a design project, not a design build, obviously.
That is correct. It is,
Okay.
and we will go out for bids on that.
And we will be putting out RFPs on the building phase.
Yes, we will.
And is this right now anywhere in our capital improvement, is this in our long-term capital improvement funding for the actual build?
We don't have much of a long-term capital improvement plan for water. That's one of the last master plans. We have bits and pieces, but that's still a work in progress, that particular CIP.
So the actual build of this, I mean, I know it's not a fair question to talk about money, I guess, yet, but one would certainly assume that this would be a multi-million-dollar project to look at the kind of repairs that we're going to need, the bridge deck, et cetera. I mean, it's got to be a multi-million-dollar project.
Again, early estimates are $750,000 on the bridge deck, and
Okay.
the one thing we've done through the years is try to build the reserves in the water fund so that we're well funded for these type major capital projects, and we in fact do have funding to handle a project of this
How much
magnitude.
reserves do we have right now?
About $22 million. That is
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that's encouraging, and that's just, I was just interested in the build phase of it. Thank you.
Alderman Lauer.
Craig, just real quick, I'm not going to tie things up here. I would like to come out and kind of do a little boots on the ground with you.
Please
At some
do.
point. We talked about that. And by the way, I do have quite a history. I was actually camping out when we had about a 6-inch rainfall at age, I think it was about 10, before the dam was built out there.
Okay.
And I got wet. So,
Yes.
yeah, I understand. Yeah, not good. Anyway, how critical, and on a timeline, without really knowing how critical do you think we're looking in terms of replacement or repair on that bridge?
The bridge, I think it's going to be driven more by the state and the ongoing restrictions that we're going to have. I would say it probably is as high of a rating as you could get, that critical. The mere fact that we have to push people over to another box beam is indicating how critical that particular issue is.
And do you have any indication that there may be additional beams on that surface that might need attention at the same time?
We've done we did the initial inspection that was asked for by the state. That report said, boy, we have to restrict the traffic on this one beam. The rest of the bridge deck is, I guess, passable. We can push traffic over there. But the fact of the matter is, this is kind of an overall unit where these beams work together. So, you can't have part of a bridge fail, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a very critical issue that we do address there. The rest of the bridge deck does need work, and if we were going to do it, it would be a complete replacement. We would not just do that box beam.
Are you looking at a kind of a tentative 5-year plan? Are we looking at 3 years? Do you have any kind of idea here at all for us?
I would be surprised if this weren't, our hand weren't forced to get it done within 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much.
it is that critical.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Cummings. Appreciate that. Moving on to item 8B, Professional Engineering Services Agreement with Hanson Professional Services Inc. Company for design and preparation of emergency action plans for Lake Bloomington and Lake Evergreen and other services. City Manager Hales?
We would just recommend that the City Council approve this particular contract and be willing to answer any questions. But I think Mr. Cummings did a great job giving some background.
Okay. Questions of the City Manager on this contract? Alderwoman
I'm
Stearns?
just ready to make a motion.
Awesome.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this contract as written.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Schmidt. Any further questions? All right. It's 9-0. No one to announce on the opposite side, Madam Clerk. All right. Moving along, we have item 8C, the Illinois Public Museum Capital Grant application for Miller Park Zoo in the amount of $700,000. And we've talked about this a little bit, of course, in our, or indirectly at least, in our earlier discussion at the work session. City Manager Hales, if you want to just clarify that again.
Yeah, let me have John Kennedy come forward. He's just going to make a few brief comments, but as we said earlier, this is extremely unusual to see a grant opportunity like this where there's practically no match required by the city. Would you comment a little on this application and what we might use the funds for if we were to be given this grant from the state of Illinois?
Absolutely. As the city manager mentioned, the local match is based on a level of attendance of your museum. Our zoo would qualify as a museum under their definition, and our attendance is around 100,000 visitors per year, and that qualifies for no local match. So it is an extremely rare opportunity to find a grant that does offer that. The one requirement is the $300 application fee, but otherwise no matching grant. Maximum, you have to submit one project per grant cycle. With a maximum of $750,000 for that project. So what we've looked at, based on the timing of this application is due February 3rd. They would not announce winners until at earliest the fall of this year, fall of 2014. So we looked at our master plan and what projects that we might be able to find that would take leverage as much dollars as possible if we were to get this grant. So we looked at the zoo entrance enhancement project, which would be the addition to the parking lot, which would support the entire park, the spray park and the new playground that we have there. We do have a safety issue with parking and the road that goes between those amenities and the zoo. And then continuing that theme of an entrance project is the gift shop and concession stand project. And then also, as soon as you walk in through the zoo, DeBraza monkey exhibit would be right there at the beginning. So we've created this zoo entrance enhancement project that would be roughly a $700,000 project is what we are submitting. If this gets approved, that's what we would submit.
Questions of Mr. Kennedy? Alderwoman McDade?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the item as presented.
Okay. A motion by Alderwoman McDade. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Black. So we have a motion and a second, and you had a question, I'm guessing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming forward. So we were talking about this in the work session, and we're talking about percentages. I'm wondering if we were to get this, would that count towards our percent towards contributing to the zoo?
I think where it would take a lot of our percentage is 2 of those 3 projects that I mentioned are infrastructure, which would be city 100%. So that would take that 100% structure out of city funding. So it's the smallest piece of those 3 projects I mentioned is the monkey exhibit, which would be a 40-60 split. So it would be, I guess we could look at how that would play into what our percentages that we came up to.
Sure. And I guess my second question would be, other than the $300 that the city would pay to apply for this grant, what type of financial obligation would we have down the road? Say we were to obtain this grant for the $700 grand, we'd be looking at what type of additional expenses from our end? Are there strings attached, essentially, is what I'm
No, this provides 100% funding for the project.
Alderman, Alderman Lauer.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I think we really need to step back here and take a big, long, hard look at exactly what we're doing. It seems like, this is a no-brainer, and the candy's right there just for the reaching. But I think we have to understand we're talking about enhancing a quality of life issue, and it's a nice little addendum here in the city of Bloomington we've had for a long time. And we're talking about a major expansion of that. It's not just free money, though, okay? We need to understand that we are living in the 50th state in terms of job growth, okay? We had a 67% income tax rate jump, okay, to the people, and we're very, very low on the totem pole in terms of quality of ability to create new business because of our corporate income tax rate. And so the state is broke, and we're asking for almost $750,000 for something that's for a quality of life issue. I'm having problems weighing this again. This is something that our citizens will be paying for. It comes out of the big pot. I understand that. And we don't have to actually put our name on it, really. But I think we need to stand up and take responsibility for this, too. So this is going to be paid for by our citizens and by our society right here in Bloomington, okay? Indirectly, okay? But it is. And really, if we step back and look at how government was really designed to operate, okay, originally back over 200 years ago, we wouldn't be sending the federal government and the state government all this money and then getting it back. We'd be making that decision and making those decisions on our own buck right here, and that's really what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Alderman Fruin.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't see anything earlier in the earlier discussion because I think by the time I listened to it, I thought I was very in sync with everybody's council comments. So I think I'm very much in sync with regard to wouldn't this be nice to do, and also where does it fit in all of our other priorities. We've talked about that. This might be a wish list, but with regard to Kevin's comment about stepping back, in an ideal world, I think what's happened over the time is this used to be a city of Bloomington zoo. And I think what's happened over the years is as we become more regional, I don't know who the people are that use the zoo beyond, I don't know if we have a breakdown of that, but I don't know if I want to say it this way, that it's too bad that we don't have a more global, more regional stake in this city of Bloomington property. So is it a McLean County? Is it a Central Illinois or what have you? But I think stepping back and looking at the big picture, some of these things we have to change our culture, and maybe this is just much more than City of Bloomington. So I guess that comes into private fundraising and those types of things, and so forth and so on. but I see a real crossroads here between would love to keep this gem and where does it fit in with financial priorities. So more of a comment than anything right now.
David?
I just want to explain that my understanding is the funding for this particular grant is coming from the state's capital bill from a few years ago. And usually when, as they came up with this capital bill, they came up with separate, specific, standalone funding sources to fund that capital bill. In fact, there's recent discussions in a couple of years, they'll probably discuss coming up with another capital bill. So the funding, the revenue stream for these capital bills usually is separate. It's not something that's my understanding coming out of the general fund of the state. And the fact of the matter is this particular program is one that as they award these grants, they will spend the money. So it's granted, we could say no, we could not apply, but the money will get spent and the state will be spending this. But again, it's my understanding there's separate, standalone funding sources, and I think even some of the video gaming revenue from the state is one of the major sources from this prior state capital bill. We could research that a little bit more, but it's just like with some of the other grant funds sometimes we apply for, even if we have federal dollars coming through the state for infrastructure projects, sometimes we have other sources. So I hope that that's helpful to help understand that the state's not going to take the money from this grant program and spend it on pensions and others, because that was already decided a few years ago by the state legislature, and they committed specific funding sources for this. So,
Actually, we're running a little short on time, but Alderman Sage and then Alderwoman Schmidt. Excuse me, Stearns, sorry.
John, just a point of clarification. So I want to make sure I kind of have an understanding here. We have some safety issues right now with parking, with traffic flow through the park.
Correct.
And we have a shortage of the number of parking spaces that we technically need. And I think, if I'm correct, that has been at least mentioned or highlighted in some of the discussions in terms of the accreditation of our zoo.
Correct.
Okay. So primarily, and again, help me if I'm misunderstanding. Primarily, what we're doing is we're applying for a grant to solve some current safety issues, but at the same time, and again, I don't want to create confusion in my mind. We're also, I guess, kind of leveraging the grant to begin to create some of the aspects of the master plan, and at least the first one or two exhibits or efforts, if you will.
That's correct.
And so, again, I think I can understand where that creates a little confusion. You know, maybe for me, right? Because it feels like I'm almost biting off and approving the master plan as part of this. But at the same time, I'm concerned that I don't want to not address safety issues and some specific aspects of the accreditation of our zoo, and be able to do that again with no city matching dollars. And so, can you kind of just really briefly kind of talk through that and maybe kind of separate those two, you know, the life safety, the addressing of that, the need for more parking spaces, but at the same time, solving that problem, but also then trying to maybe lay a foundation for some of the master plan. You see where that can create some concern.
Sure.
for maybe some members of the council.
Sure, and I think addressing the safety issue is an extremely important piece, and I understand where that can cause some confusion when it's tied in with the master plan. But even if the master plan wasn't existed and we went after this type of project to address those concerns, I don't know that they could be separate, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. I think doing this project does not necessarily mean acceptance of the entire zoo master plan.
That was my understanding, but I felt like it was important for you to articulate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Stearns.
I also have a question about the actual plan, and the question is the green space. We're increasing our parking by 36%. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Well, that's what it says. And that would be an increase in surface parking, and we would just simply come up with a third bigger surface parking lot. Is that right?
Right. And it would be, varied along the existing parking lot and through the existing access roads as well. That's correct.
Right. I understand. I do understand that. I have a major concern with loss of green space. And while I'm pro-zoo, I'm very pro-Miller Park. And I think I probably spend more time there than perhaps, I've never seen any other council member out there, but I'm out there roughly twice a week. I mean, I'm sure you have been, don't get me wrong, but I've never seen anyone. And some of the zoo people have even said, oh yeah, we've seen you out there. But anyway, I'm out there a lot. I've never seen the parking lot even close to full, ever. So I'm not questioning, but I've never seen it full. But I will say that we're kind of insular here in the city of Bloomington. But looking at the discussion nationally about parks and about green space is an extremely valuable commodity. I don't like at all the idea of killing off trees, taking trees, essentially taking away green space. I don't think we have enough green space at Miller Park right now. I think the parking lot is huge. Very few people are pros of surface parking. It's frankly, if you look at the national literature on parks and on green space, surface parking is considered blighted, not pretty. And I think part of our downtown strategy and part of our, green strategy in the city is to kind of eliminate surface parking downtown. I mean, the form-based code, of course, takes away, a lot of that surface parking. So here we are. I really don't understand. We're adding surface parking. We're taking away, essentially spoiling a pretty good hunk of our green space. And I just want to conclude by saying that if we weren't so insular but looked around at literature around the country, I looked at the Journal of Environmental Science and Technology, looked at studies coming out of the University of Delaware, green space reduces violence, it reduces crime, it reduces air pollution, it reduces stress, it has mental, physical, social benefits, and I think we need a lot more green space, and I think we're doing a very serious thing, and in fact harming Miller Park in taking away green space. So I cannot support this. Parking lots are aesthetically unappealing and contribute to blight, decrease property values, in fact. I'm not sure that people around the park really understand. I know we've vetted this. I know we've had public meetings. I know we've talked and talked. But I think when they really understand that they're going to be looking at a lot more parking lot, I don't know. But there are a lot of groups nationally that are doing everything they can to keep their green space, and I want to champion the little bit of green space we do have left at the park. So
At least one thing that this possible parking lot project could do would also remove that one piece of the road that goes all the way in front of the zoo, and that would actually be added into the green space. So it would try to balance it out so we wouldn't lose green space by opening that piece up and removing that asphalt and turning it into green space to help with that concern.
is that doable?
Yes. Now I can't say exactly one for one, but it's something that is certainly part of the idea.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't know.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this point, if anything else of Mr. Kennedy, then I wonder if we can go ahead and vote on this. A yes vote would be to say, yes, we're going to go ahead and apply for this $700,000 grant. I think I've got it on. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay. The motion carries 7-2. Madam Clerk?
Nay votes are Alderman Lauer and Alderman Stearns.
Thank you. We're going to move right along to item 8D, an ordinance establishing the salary for the city manager. And the roughly recommended time on this is about 10 minutes, but we wonder if I can have a motion in a second, and then I want to see who needs to speak to this. Motion by Alderman Sage.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move that we accept item 8D as presented.
Okay, and a second by Alderman Miller-Wambwe. Okay, can I ask, who would like to speak to this? So I can allocate the time. Um, Alderman Lauer, Stearns, and Sage. Okay, start it with Judy.
Okay.
And I ask everybody to about 2 to 3 minutes.
Sure. I think I can be a little quicker than that. Nothing and no one has a bigger impact on our city than our city manager. There is no question that it is everything about our city, I think, is influenced and well, I think we can look to the leadership of our city staff, the culture, the leader in every possible respect. Just really briefly, I'm definitely on the side of things that feels like there's a recession here, a recession that has held back wages, in many, many different sectors, and certainly with our citizens. And it concerns me greatly that we, the municipality, can always approve raises. It comes from the citizens. It doesn't have to be generated by productivity. It doesn't have to be. And I'm very concerned about the trend. I'm concerned about a lot of city employees, middle managers, et cetera, who have not had raises. I'm concerned about our citizens out there who may not even have jobs, let alone raises. The uncertainty right now with the Affordable Health Care Act, with frankly, our city and our largest employer, and I'm saying that in public, maybe, that's a no-no, I don't know. But I think there's huge concern about the financial future of the city of Bloomington, and this is a time to hunker down, so to speak, financially in every possible way and be ready. Be ready for what we can't control, because we can't control any private company in any sense of the word, nor should we. Lastly, it's about accountability with me. We're 5 years into our city manager's tenure. Some good things happened initially. I appreciate that. But now I hear every day about infrastructure, long-term water planning, and response. How can we respond to our public about their curbs, their gutters, cave-ins, all of their sidewalks? Issues that were huge in the city when I joined the council, and frankly, the $10 million bond that we passed was the only step I have seen, and we just did that. So in closing, no, I do not support this. I think someone has to hold the city accountable for what we have and have not accomplished. And I, with 5 years on the council, am ready to do that.
Alderman Lauer and then Alderman Sage.
I'm just coming at this from a plus standpoint. I think we have to break it down to the lowest common denominator. I think we need to look at the folks that actually have to pay the bill here and look at their quality of life. The federal government has just cut a major portion of our veterans' benefits. We're cutting way back on Medicare. Our health insurance is likely, across the board, to go up for almost all of us. And I've got a number of constituents that are living on subsistence type of issue. I've got people calling me up because our solid waste increases may eat up 60, 70, 80% of the Social Security increased cost of living that they just got. It's just not acceptable. I'm sorry. I think we have to look at it from a perspective of how much can we save, and I'm not seeing that. And I think we're setting a very bad precedent. The private sector, in many, many instances, I would say probably on a percentage level, probably in the 80 to 90 percentile, is not getting a raise and has not gotten a raise since the start of this recession. And those are the folks really that are having to foot the bill and going to hurt over a lot of these things that we're talking about doing. So I wish we were not tying the raise issue to performance, because I don't really feel qualified, having not been here for that period of time, to really allocate those things together. But from a perspective of the actual average citizen in the city of Bloomington and affordability, I don't think we can afford it. Thank you very much.
Just if I can go ahead and clarify for everyone in the audience, for the record, the city of Bloomington does have a personnel policy where an evaluation is tied to a particular salary increase. The evaluation was not unanimous, but there was a majority support for a commendable evaluation for our city manager, and that comes with the particular raise that is being proposed right here as part of our personnel policies. And that's the case whether or not you were a police officer. Well, actually, police officers don't have that, but anyone who's subject to an evaluation. Alderman Sage.
And I'll be brief. First of all, I appreciate the tone of the previous comments. It's quite different than it was the last time we talked about city manager's salary, and so I appreciate that. And I'll say a couple things that I said just a few months ago, and that is, if there have been significant results delivered this past year by this city manager and the department heads and the employees of the city. And I'm just sitting here thinking, if for no other reason, I mean, certainly with a number of the bond refinancings that have been done, those would certainly more than offset the 3% increase that, again, as the mayor has suggested, by city policy is set. So every city employee, if they receive a commendable rating, they get a 3% increase. But what I think is even more important is that if these results had not been delivered by David, and David, one thing I appreciate about you is you always, in every situation, will highlight the specific contributions of your department heads, their management teams, and our city employees, okay? You do that every time. Even though, I would have to think that you probably had a bigger role in some of these things than others, you're always very quick to put more of the credit, apply more of the credit to the folks beside yourself. If we had not delivered those results, we would be holding our city manager accountable for those. If we had not strengthened our position financially, if we had not moved forward with some other significant policy decisions, we would be holding our city manager accountable. So the flip side of that must be true as well. Then because those are, we must give our city manager credit for that. He's the employee that we work most closely with. And so for me, a 3% increase is reasonable. Again, I appreciate the work you've done this past year, David. And again, by extension, as you're always so quick to do, to credit the department heads, their teams, and our employees to deliver those results. So thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. And I also want to make it clear that one of the things as mayor that I did insist on, I want to thank Alderman Sage, is that we did not let the city manager's evaluation essentially languish for years. And so we are going to do it. We did it on time, and we're going to do it every year for our current city manager, and at least as long as I'm mayor, for if there are any other city managers that may follow David in the future, we're going to make sure that that happens. And I want to say from the standpoint as the mayor, one of the most critical stressors for city managers is having a new mayor. And especially if you got one who's got a very different style than the previous mayor. And so, and I can certainly say that I'm sure I'm not the easiest person to adapt to, but David has in many, many, many ways. Do I always agree on things? Of course not. But that actually is the major stressor. And actually, one of the most recent academic articles nationally that's been done on city manager turnover is one that I co-authored, and it says that the most important variable impacting city manager turnover is the election of a new mayor. So it is definitely a challenge, to say the least, and I think in any number of ways, David has certainly responded. And that was included in my write-up. There were two write-ups of the city manager. One, I was summarizing council comments to try to indicate where the balance seemed to be on the council, and then I was making my own comments as the mayor, who frankly should be the person who does lead the evaluation of the city manager. Anyway, so thank you. At this point, one last comment, because we are over time.
Sorry about that.
Alderman, it's not your fault. I'm the one blabbing. Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the time. So thinking about this in terms of a performance evaluation, my day job is in human resources, and thinking about what the expectations we have for David are, they're lofty. He essentially has 10 different bosses, all of whom have 10 different agendas representing 9 different wards and one representing the entire city, and that's hard. And I am very sympathetic to when you come looking to us for direction, and we are unable to provide that direction. That being said, when I was thinking about this, I thought about my experiences with David. I've only been on the council since May, and in that time frame, David came to 2 different neighborhood association meetings with me. He didn't have to, but he came and he answered questions. He met with people. One of the neighborhood association meetings that he attended with me was more of a negative discussion about the city, things that we weren't doing well, and he took accountability for that. And is the converse to what Alderman Sage was pointing out is giving the staff credit. He took accountability for when we weren't doing what we needed to be doing and made the appropriate changes. To me, that's creating value. He's creating value for our citizens. He's making discernible impacts on our neighborhoods. He's making discernible changes to our policies and procedures to create value for our city. I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged and commended. So I think a 3% raise is more than reasonable.
Okay. At this point, actually, you're not calling the roll. I'm going to start vote, and I'm going to do this properly this time. Okay. The motion passes 7-2. Madam Clerk?
And the nay votes are Alderman Lauer and Stern.
Okay. Moving right along to our last item on our regular agenda, item 8E. And we do have budgeted 15 minutes or so for this. I'm just going to make a couple remarks. I'm not taking that away from our at least rough projected time on this. Just to be clear, when I was elected mayor and then actually sworn in, there were 59 board and commission vacancies and or expired terms. There were some things that we wanted to clean up. I didn't realize it, but Alderman Sage and Alderman Schmidt had been involved in trying to help this situation. I didn't realize that much of the information that I got was as a result of their hard work. And so there were several things. First of all, I tried to fill all of the vacancies that we had, and we mostly got that accomplished fairly quickly. And the second thing I did was to meet regularly with Alderman Schmidt and Sage to try to say what kinds of changes might we begin to make. One of the ones that didn't actually come out directly of that was a conversation that I had with City Manager Hales actually the day after the election, and I ran it by Alderman Sage and Schmidt, and they thought that was a good idea. We've already done that piece, and that is clean up our building boards, and that's been consolidated. This proposal this evening is just another piece of many attempts to change some of our board and commission procedures. So I think there may have been some misunderstanding that this was an attempt to be a comprehensive rewriting. This was not that at all. There are certainly some other things that were brought to our attention that we might need to change in the future. Perhaps even making sure there's public comment. Perhaps even, as one of our commentators this evening suggested, maybe live streaming. All of these things are certainly possible as we move forward. Many people have also suggested different types of committees that we might have, maybe ad hoc committees. I have resisted forming those primarily because I wanted to wait to see whether or not the council would pass, in a sense, this piece of the whole process. So again, this was not meant to be a comprehensive rewrite. This was meant to essentially address a couple of concerns, balancing the need to have experience with new blood on our boards and commissions. And initially, I was somewhat agnostic, for example, on term limits, and in my conversations with many people throughout the community, some people on boards and commissions, and particularly Alderwoman Schmidt and Alderman Sage, I think that it is a very reasonable possibility here and a very reasonable balance, because it doesn't mean you can't come back. It's not like term limits that are implied, for certain kinds of governors or a president. It basically just says that after 9 years of continuous service, we ask you to take a year off, get a little perspective, and then you can apply the year after, right? So we certainly, have situations. I think, it may take a year or 2 or 3 years for people to get up to speed before they may be comfortable on a committee. And certainly that's fine. At the point of around 9 years, we're suggesting take a year off, maybe get a little perspective, and then come back. That's not just important, I think, for the idea of having new blood and balancing that with experience, but it does seem to me that at least some of our boards and commissions have had a bit of a sense of entitlement to the positions. We as elected officials don't have a sense of entitlement. We know we can be dumped in the next election, right? We're held accountable. Boards and commissions are held accountable to citizens through the 10 of us. And I think this type of change will help make that clear and will strengthen that as we move forward. And again, I won't take my remarks away from our time. So roughly 15 minutes. And can I see who would like to speak? Let's see, I have, oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion? Alderman Sage, did you want to?
Was
Alderman,
Yes, I will move that the city council adopt item 8E as presented.
and are you seconding?
Second.
Okay. And then Alderman Sage, who else would like to speak to this? Black. We'll start out with Alderman Sage, Black, Boca, and Alderman Stearns, and then Alderman Schmidt. Oh, and then Alderman Fruin. Okay. So if we could ask to just be as concise as possible, a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, oh, and then Alderman Fazzini. Okay. Who was I starting with? Alderman Sage.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just, I think, echo a couple things that you said. Previously, the city council and a number of the folks on the council adopted a strategic plan that had one of the goals to increase the amount of citizen engagement that the residents of Bloomington had with their local government. And I think that we probably see our boards and commissions as a primary way that we can do that, create opportunities for our residents to become more involved with their city government. And I think that's important for several reasons, but I'll just mention one. I know Jim has, over the years, spent some time talking about succession planning. And so for me, there's an element of succession planning here. This helps us, I think, contribute to kind of the building of our bench, if you will, to try to create some opportunities where the community leaders, potential city council members in the future have the opportunity to kind of come in and interact with the city by way of boards and commissions, and I think that's a really good thing. And again, this supports one of our goals of our strategic plans. Again, I think that's noteworthy, and again, appreciate also that you mentioned a few names. I will tell you that there's been a tremendous amount of staff engagement and help here, and I don't mean to necessarily leave a lot of people out, and although I most likely will. Katie Bidos has done a fabulous job, kind of helping to pull together the hows for a lot of the whats that we've spent some time talking about. I know Rosalie, George were engaged and very, very key in the drafting of the ordinance. So my thanks to you two. I know our IT department, with a lot of the work that was done as part of our new city web page and a lot of the synchronizing of information across that entire web page, I know was due to a lot of the support from our IT department. So, my hat's off to them. And so I guess what I want to try to just indicate is it's been very much a collaboration between, I think some of the elected officials as well as the city staff to try and kind of move the ball forward. And again, appreciate your interest, your engagement, and your willingness to help do that. So thank you.
Let's see, Alderman Black. Again, if we could try to keep to 2 to 3 minutes if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I like this as is, and I just wanted, usually I wait towards the end to kind of get the council's feel for it, but Jeff Smith has sent us an email about open meetings training. I think that's a very important component of being on a board or commission. Having attended a few of them, there's a lot to be desired in terms of that training, and it's very easy to do online. So I'd like to add in here, I guess as an alternative motion to this, that all appointed board member commissioners have an Open Meetings Act certification within 1 month of being sworn in. Is it in there?
Yeah.
It's in state statute that they have 90 days.
I'd like to see it in here too, within the 1 month. I mean, be incredibly clear with it, that is an important component. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Well, Well, I tend to find people don't know what they don't know, and they may be required through state statute to do it, but if we're very crystal clear at the get-go, all right?
If I could just, maybe just to try to maybe clarify, I can assure you that the kind of informal group that we've had with Alderwoman Schmidt and Alderman Sage and I will continue to work on this, and I think we want to move forward with perhaps something like live streaming and other accountability issues, and we will perhaps work on those over the next couple months so that we can maybe accommodate what you're interested in, and I think what Mr. Meeks and others have talked about, and maybe perhaps avoid some of the concerns that Alderman Lauer has suggested. Is that?
I guess my motion dies then?
I'm asking if you would perhaps give us a little time to continue to work on that.
Sure. Okay. But it's an important component. I mean,
Right, I'm not dissing that.
and I can tell you, I attended a library board meeting where I had to try to figure out where it was, and it's behind closed doors. I know that's their only space that they have to do that, but those are the kind of things that we want to be cognizant of and make sure that all the members are aware of. So if public does want to show up to these things, it's not too challenging.
Yeah,
So
it does need to be inviting, there's no question.
Yeah.
Right, and there's no reason why all boards
it's
and
not
commissions
just
can't
about
be
putting it
there.
on a website. It's about engaging people to bring them there, and I thought that would be one way to do it. So I'll hang tight. I withdraw my alternative motion.
Thank you. Let's see, who was next? Boca and then Alderman Stearns.
Thank you. Well, I'm always interested in the house, how we're going to do things, and I guess I'm happy to hear that someone could go for their 3 terms, and then a year off, and then come back. That was one of the concerns that I had initially. So it doesn't really stop them from coming back ever at one point or another. And I think that it might have been interpreted that way by a few people. The other concern or question that I have is about the chairmanship. And I know when you and I spoke this afternoon, we got into other things, and I didn't get a chance to ask about that. But I did talk to Alderman Sage about that as well. And it's more of a question of how, because as far as I understand it, typically when you take on a position, the first year is really learning how to do things. And then the second and third year, then you start to get better at it. And so I was kind of curious how this would work, because it wasn't exactly clear to me. Does somebody become a chair and then they're done after a year and they can come back another year after that, or something like that? So I wanted a little bit of clarification about that. Anybody?
I think that, Dave, if you want to weigh in terms of our discussion here, I think the assumption was is by the time somebody was in chairmanship, they would have been on the committee for some period of time, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, part of the conversation that we had, and again, maybe we need to, going forward, make some tweaks to that language, but again, encouraging some level of mentorship within our boards and commissions, so that whenever possible, we spread some of those leadership opportunities around. And again, that's, I think, consistent with the, kind of the bench building we've talked about, some of the succession planning. Now, not everybody will want to be a chairperson or, vice chairperson or whatever, but I think we have to be, I think, interested in making sure that we create those opportunities for that to happen. And especially as folks are rotating off commissions, that they've done their due diligence in preparing kind of that next round of leadership for the board or commission as they rotate off. And so I don't know if that maybe addresses some part of your question in both.
Okay. Alderwoman, I apologize. I just went to Alderman Sage to deal with the point.
No, I was just curious about the 1-year chairmanship. I just don't understand that. Of course, I served on a commission before I ran for council, and I don't understand the 1-year leadership, since really it takes some experience, and once you get the experience, I think it's good to be able to, to use it and have the continuity. So I don't get the 1-year chairmanship. Maybe you could help me, since you were.
Yeah, I think that the.
It's up to 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
You're elected for 1 year and may be reelected for a second year.
Oh, so it goes to 2.
Right.
Okay,
And-
and then
and-
after that, somebody else has to be chairman, is that right? I mean, Okay.
That's the way the ordinance is written now.
Okay.
Is that correct, Rosalie? No? I'm looking, for example, Historic Preservation Commission happened to come up. It says, serve a term of 1 year and shall be eligible for re-election, but no member shall serve as chairman for more than 2 consecutive years. Please. Oh.
That's in that section, the section 31 of chapter 2. It addresses all the boards and commissions, and that language is not in there.
So then there may be some internal inconsistencies, because the one, I'm looking at historic preservation, and it says,
That was already in there.
so what is it, Rosalie, for
Okay,
how
I
long?
lost
Now,
that
the
then.
way that it was amended, chapter 2, section 31, the chairperson and vice chairperson of any board or commissions shall serve for a 1-year term only.
Okay, well, I'd like to see that changed,
Okay. Are you making a motion then?
Yes,
Do we
I'll
want to have
make
it
a counter
consistent
motion.
with the language
that,
in the Historic Preservation Committee?
Yeah, we need internal consistency whichever way
Right.
we go. I'd prefer to go with a little bit more liberal, so
Right.
you get your sea legs.
Okay.
So that,
So-
if you could read that language, Alderwoman Schmidt.
When I find it again, I shall.
Let me ask, assuming what we come up with the language, is there a second for that motion? A second by
I would
Alderman Walpole.
I would second that.
You would second it, okay, so we have,
Okay, and so the language is in 44 dot 11-1C under officers, and it says officers shall consist of a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary elected by the Preservation Commission or whatever, who shall serve a term of 1 year and shall be eligible for re-election, but no member shall serve as a chairman for more than 2 consecutive years.
is that acceptable? Okay. So we have a motion, a second, to amend the motion. Okay, are there comments or questions on this? Well, since we had some people who are willing to speak, who want to speak, let me recognize them, and then we'll vote on the substitute motion and then the full motion itself. Everybody with me?
Sure,
Okay.
I think.
All right. Do you, or Alderman Fazini, did you want to speak to the amendment, or would you prefer, Alderman Fruin, would you like to speak to the amendment or the motion overall? Okay. I tell you, to avoid confusion, does anybody want to speak to the amendment that was just made, the amended motion that was made by Alderwoman Stearns and seconded by Alderman Schmidt? Okay, can we go ahead and vote? Oh, sure. Right. It would change the current language from suggesting that a committee chair cannot serve more than 1 year to, again, Karen, what's that language?
So that you may serve a term of 1 year and be eligible for re-election to serve as chair up to 2 consecutive years.
So then you would conceivably could take a year off and you could come back again, but it's 2 years.
Yes,
Is
that's
is
correct.
kind of the authoritative statement for all the boards and commissions. That's what you're
Correct.
talking
That's
about. Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
And then that would create the internal consistency, right? Okay, can we go ahead and vote on the amendment to the motion? The amendment, right, amendment. Judy, did you want to vote on that? I think Alderman Fruin. Okay, all right.
I'm consciously not voting.
Okay, okay.
I don't know
That's fine. Okay.
where this process is going, but
Okay. We have, so you are, yes, I think.
You have to abstain or something. You have to vote.
all right, let's clarify this. We're voting,
Just on the amendment to the main motion,
Make it 2 years.
to make it 2 years. To make it being eligible for 2 consecutive years.
and
as
we're
chair.
and then we're coming back for further discussion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right, correct. Okay. So the motion carries 8-1. Madam Clerk?
Fini voting no on the amendment.
All right, now we return to a discussion of the main motion, and I will continue with Alderwoman Schmidt, Fazzini, Fruin, and then Lauer.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a little bit of extra background as context, and I particularly want to give a shout out to Dave Sage because you really put a lot of work into this. With Katie Bidos, who surveyed every single board and commission, talked about their charge, how often they met, did they feel they served a valuable function? And then, so that was great information, I think, to help us understand how our boards and commissions worked. One of the things that I think I learned from that is Mr. Schultz at our public comment had talked about every board and commission elects a chair. In fact, I think we discovered that every board and commission doesn't elect a chair, and sometimes chairs just keep being the chair. And this brings some structure and some rigor to how these boards and commissions work. We also looked a lot at best practices in other municipalities for boards and commissions and tried to bring ours more in line with what seemed to be reasonable practices in other cities. And I have to say, personally, I know that we've heard some concerns about term limits for boards and commission members. I cannot think of a board that I've been on that didn't have a term limit. And I might have really not wanted to step down because I love the work of that board, but it's a good thing. It continues to keep our boards and commissions very, very energetic and focused, and that's what's behind this. And I just, I think the context might help in general to understand where this came from.
Thank you very much. Alderman Zine.
I think we missed an opportunity to look at this from about 30,000 feet. When we established these boards and commissions, probably more than 30 years ago, we were a community of about 40,000 people. We're now a lot larger and a lot more complex. And I have a 2-page email that I sent to everybody beforehand indicating that we really should delay this vote until we had a chance to at least address the items that I put in the email. And I'm only going to read 2 of them rather than take time to read this whole thing. The current boards and commissions and committees, which were left off of the report, by the way, are heavily weighted toward reviewing policy and ordinance exceptions or oversight of operating entities, 12 of the 16 actually, with only 4 concentrating on quality of life issues, and I've identified who they are. Second sentence is, there are none concentrating on what has become a critical aspect of ensuring financial success of our city, which is promoting the economic development within our city to increase population and increase the number of businesses operating within our city. We actually want to take our boards and commissions and get more of them doing that as opposed to having 12 doing oversight and 4 working on the quality of life issues. Therefore, I would like not to vote on this today, but if I do have to vote, I'm going to vote no because I think we haven't addressed all the major issues by taking a step back and looking at the whole process. That's my 2 minutes.
Again, just to clarify, this was meant to be only one piece of an ongoing process, and certainly, frankly, as I said, I've been urged by many people to create ad hoc committees, maybe on economic development, and I have resisted it until we, from my perspective, filled this piece so that when we talk to people, they know the terms of their service. If I create another board or commission and then have the council approve people to serve on it, the terms of the service and chairmanship, et cetera, I thought was important. So I think we viewed it just as a singular piece. So Alderman Fruin and then Alderman Lauer, and then I think we'll vote.
Thank you, Mayor. I first will echo Rob's comments that as time progresses, that I think it is wise to look at things from a more global or a more futuristic approach, and maybe that has been part of this process, I'm not sure, but anytime we step back and take a fresh look at things, we're much better off. I guess I kind of feel like right now I'm in a position of whether the glass is half empty or half full, and so I've kind of sat here and thought that I came in with it half empty, and I've sent some emails to the council in the last couple of weeks with regard to some of my questions and concerns. I think listening to others, and I've thought about how my glass is right now, I've come to the conclusion that my glass is half full and that I want to support the vote and support the work that's been done by the 3 people involved. But I do so with some reservations and some differences of opinion. And I'll just quickly mention a couple of those things, but I will support the motion. In short, my interest was that we would have been better served if we would continue our practice of openness and listening to each other and listening to the community. And I wish that had taken place. I'm not sure that that took place, but you can't take everything to the council as a whole, and you can't take everything to the community. I think when this was initiated by Alderman Sage, it was much needed, and I think it illustrates from that time to this time the significant mayoral styles that we have. So that's just a very neutral commentary. It's not anything other than that. The other thing I wish we could have some discussion on sometime is the differences of the committees themselves. And I'm going to try to avoid naming committees because we'll all take differences, but we have a lot of committees that serve different functions. And the one that comes to my mind is the library committee. I see them as much different than a lot of other committees that are more advisory, et cetera. The library works with finances, they work with budget. I mean, it's a different animal. And I just see that as making sure we don't take too broad a brush and paint every board and commission the same. I'm understanding the term limits. I really am. I think it's a common practice, a best practice. And I've not met Mr. Schultz before, but I think he makes some very good points. His numbers surprised me with regard to the turnover that we're going to see in the next couple of years. And I think the library, I don't know why, but we've got some real strength on that group, and that's Bill Wetzel and Patsy Bowles and Carol Coos and a lot of other people that have been on there a long time, and I hate to see that strength go, but with strength we can build new strength, I guess. It's nice to benefit from the discussion of others, because I think Karen mentioned that there was a review of best practices in other communities, and that's not illustrated here. You can't document every single thing that's occurred, but that was one of the things that I would have an interest in, is what are the other communities successful at, so I'm glad that's been addressed. I won't say much more than that. I think we have differences of opinion on term limits with regard to, if we're asking this of others, do we ask it of ourselves? And I realize that we've got an election out there and different ways to get appointed and reelected, but having lived that situation, serving on the council for 8 years, at my choosing, I resigned, had no intention of coming back to the council. I can tell you that serving that, quote, sabbatical was very helpful to me to look from the audience and look from the armchair, and got the bug again and came back. So I think there is some value to sabbaticals and some temporary absences. I'll close with one other thing that I wish would happen. I think we have a very number of very gifted and talented people in the community, and I hope we can find ways to continue to recruit those committee members. And it seems to me like the experience that we have seen is that people get into one silo and serve on one board or one commission. And I think there's so much value to people changing and serving on maybe a multitude of boards and commissions. So I guess that's an issue for the mayor and the individuals themselves. But my vote is to support my colleagues' work on this, and I know that that work will continue, and thank you for allowing me to make some comments.
Thank you. And last but not least, I just want to echo both of you guys, Fruin and Fazzini. I hope we can come back and take another look at this a few months down the road and see how it's working out, modify it if we need to. I think that, it's an imperfect science, and I think we need to be very, very cognizant of that. Thank you very much, David, and thank you all that were involved in this. It's very, very complex. There's a lot of emotion involved. I'm hoping that many of these folks will move laterally into other areas and help us out. I'm very concerned with the volunteerism. I don't want to cut our nose off the spider face here. That's the biggest thing I think would be the detriment, is to lose a lot of that experience and depth and history. as you know, I go back to a number of former aldermen to double check myself over and over again, and sometimes I get a good tongue lashing. I got one today, as a matter of fact, a former mayor again. So, and rightly so. He has a point, and I value his opinion, and I value many of yours as well as theirs. So I think open and taking another look is the only way to go, Rob. And Jim, I think you're right too. So thank you.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and vote. Yeah, aye is in favor, of course. Okay. Okay, the motion carries 8-1, Madam Clerk.
Your nay vote is Alderman Fazine.
Okay, thank you very much. And David, for some reason, you're not on here. Do you come before me, or do I come after you under city manager's discussion?
Typically, it would be myself.
Okay, why don't you go
But,
first then?
yeah, just two quick things. Just want to mention again, we do have a public meeting. It's just to gather input on some road changes over on the west side. I think we've got that noticed on our city website, First Christian Church, tomorrow night. Looking at some proposed engineering recommendations, generating from some concern by residents over there, maybe changing some of the one-way to two-way or two-way to one-way, and also looking at Jefferson Street and the public safety concern by both police and fire as to whether or not that should be reopened next to Friendship Park. So just wanted to mention that. And then secondly, next week you'll get a separate email, but the Planning Commission is going to receive a presentation by some principals from House Seal Levine. This is a firm that that the staff is considering and will shortly be making recommendation to the council in relationship to a comprehensive plan and community visioning. We've gone through a transition here, but we really believe there would be great value in a partnership and having House Seal Levine kind of take more of a lead on the comprehensive plan. Then and in addition, the McLean County Regional Planning Commission would take a cooperative, collaborative role with House Seal Levine on this upcoming comp plan. One of the issues that came out loud and clear as we evaluated a lot of people who submitted proposals for the community visioning process is that really the greatest benefit will come if we take the community visioning and have that integrated into the comprehensive plan. We did have a previous presentation by this particular group at a meeting over on the other side. I think Alderwoman Schmidt was able to attend that. So anyway, we are going to, it is a planning commission meeting. We do want to invite any and all elected officials, anyone who can come and attend that. Could take some time, maybe 45 minutes or more. So it's an opportunity to kind of hear what's being proposed in combination of a community visioning and comprehensive plan, and what we think is a tremendous opportunity to see what other communities have done to make a comp plan much more usable, effective, a way to engage the community, and this particular firm just has some phenomenal kind of success and track record as they've tried to take these comp plans and make that a much more meaningful and a community engaged process. So please, if you can, come and join the Planning Commission to hear this presentation. Other than that, Mayor, I have nothing else to report, other than thank you for the honor and privilege of continuing to serve as your city manager. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. And I want to start out with a heartfelt thanks to all of our staff dealing with the real potential crisis that we had. And I took one of our direct flights from Bloomington to Orlando, just saying it's a good thing, good for economic development for our community. But anyway, I went the 26th, came back the 2nd. As I'm coming back, there is a potential disaster right? We've got 6 to possibly 12 inches of snow, record wind chills, 45 below, and I kept hoping that every time we were on a conference call that the weather report would improve. It didn't. But I can say that our staff, I want to thank our city manager, David Hales, Barb Adkins, and all of our department heads, including obviously Jim Karch in Public Works, but also water, police, fire, HR. We were on conference calls, and it really was very, very impressive. They had contacted the county and Normal, constantly in contact with them. They were monitoring the situation and made some really, really good calls. And also thanking our citizens for being smart enough to stay inside when it was 45 below outside. That really, really helped our overall process. So I want to thank all of you, and it was really an honor to be mayor, to listen to what was going on. We were making stuff happen, and I thought this is real easy to be mayor under these circumstances, right? And when I went out with Jim Karch and David Hales, we went out from about 10:30 to noon on Monday. We couldn't even find a cul-de-sac that wasn't plowed at that point. And so our public service workers and our department heads all really did a fantastic job. And I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. And I have 2 quick New Year's resolutions, and then I will turn it over to our alderman. One I think you'll really appreciate. First of all, I think it's important for all of us to listen. And I will try to dedicate myself to listening more, not just to constituents and staff, but to my council, our council, as we move forward. Listening is critical. When I'm moving my mouth, I do not learn anything. Right? When I have my mouth shut, I will tend to learn things. The other thing that I've learned relative to this is my other New Year's resolution, that is, spend about 30 minutes before you reply in electronic communication, and don't put anything in electronic communication that you don't want on the front page of the Panagraph the next day. There is software for that, but there's also a self-smacking. That's it. Who else would like to? Any alderman want to start with comments? You don't have to do the same. Alderman Fruin.
Just one comment. Earlier I elected the half-full option, and now I'm going to elect the half-empty option. And being the lone wolf on the recent garbage and bulk waste vote, I do want to reiterate my concern that we're asking citizens to make their decisions on the carts, and what they do not know or what they don't have is that the council has already made a determination that we are going to raise fees on the 2 larger carts in subsequent years. And I just think that's something that might have fallen through the cracks. And I see people selecting the 2 larger carts, and then 2 years from now they're going to say, whoops, I didn't realize we were going to have a increase. So maybe others aren't concerned with that, but I think it's a situation that we could have handled a little bit better with regard to notifying the public that increases will be forthcoming. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I think that means that we're adjourned.
There really is software, apparently, because I've often wanted to get it myself.
I'm going to see David.
Yes, I know. Okay, great. Yeah, you moved it back a quarter, right?
I got
Sorry, you're out of town, and I'm
you obviously leadership role in this town. You are over. It's on here. I mean, it's supposed to be the top. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I should some comments from the board before the meeting. You and him put that in.